I found a secret chat room, and now I'm terrified. The hum of the ancient desktop fan was the only sound louder than the frantic drumming in my chest. Another sleepless night. Another pointless trawl through the digital wasteland. Unemployment had turned my life into an endless loop of job applications and self-recrimination, punctuated by these late-night excursions into the internet's underbelly. I'd started with Wikipedia rabbit holes, then moved on to obscure forums dedicated to forgotten technologies. That's where I found it, buried in the comments section of a thread discussing obsolete encryption methods. A single line of code, seemingly nonsensical, but accompanied by the cryptic phrase, "Those who seek shall find." The URL was a string of random characters, the kind that would make your average user scroll past without a second glance. The chat room itself was unsettlingly minimalist. Just a blank white screen with a blinking cursor and a list of usernames down the side. Spectre, Raven, Whisper, Seeker, and one that sent a chill down my spine, Keeper. The messages were cryptic, fragmented, and often disturbing. They talked about rituals, symbols, and the offering. At first I thought it was some elaborate LA warp, a creepy role-playing game taken way too seriously. But then I saw the dates. The chat logs went back years. And then there were the local news reports. 3 people missing in the past 6 months. All from my relatively quiet suburban town. My anxiety, usually a background hum, spiked into a discordant screech. I started researching the missing persons. A young college student, a middle-aged accountant, and an elderly woman. Seemingly unconnected, but all vanished without a trace. I cross-referenced their last known locations with places mentioned in the chat room. The old Blackwood Mill, the abandoned train tracks near Willow Creek, the overgrown cemetery on the edge of town. The correlations were undeniable. Spectre. The offering is almost ready. Raven, Blackwood Mill. Midnight. Whisper. Are we sure about this one? Keeper. Silence. The path has been chosen. I showed Sarah, my younger sister, who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She's always been the pragmatic one, the voice of reason in my increasingly chaotic life. She listened patiently, her brow furrowed with concern. Elias, you haven't slept properly in weeks. This sounds like an obsession. Maybe you should talk to someone? But Sarah, don't you see? This is real. These people are in danger. She sighed, taking my hand. I know you're worried, but you can't base your life on some internet conspiracy. Talk to the police if you're that concerned. But please, get some rest. The police? I considered it, but what could I tell them? That I found a creepy chat room that might be connected to some missing persons. I had no concrete evidence, nothing that would stand up in court. I imagined Detective Miller, a man who looked like he'd seen too much bad coffee and even worse crime scenes, dismissing me as another paranoid internet weirdo. Instead, I delved deeper. I became a regular in the chat room, lurking in the shadows, trying to decipher their code. I learned their language, their symbols, their rituals. I even started to participate, asking seemingly innocuous questions, trying to glean information without giving myself away. Then came the private messages. From Keeper. You are watching. My heart pounded in my chest. How did they know? I'd been so careful. Keeper curiosity killed the cat, Elias. They knew my name. I shut down my computer, unplugged it, and threw a blanket over it, as if that would somehow protect me. I spent the rest of the night pacing my apartment, jumping at every creak and shadow. The next day, I received another message. Keeper, Willow Creek. Dawn. You will be there. It was a threat, plain and simple. But it was also an invitation. A chance to find out what was really going on, to stop them before it was too late. I told Sarah I was going for a hike, needing some fresh air. She looked at me skeptically, but didn't press. I packed a backpack with a flashlight, a knife, and a small voice recorder. I knew I was walking into a trap, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to do something. Willow Creek was a desolate place, a tangle of overgrown trees and decaying train tracks. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and rotting leaves. As dawn broke, casting long, eerie shadows, I made my way to the abandoned train depot, the location mentioned in the chat room. Inside, the scene was even more disturbing than I had imagined. The walls were covered in strange symbols, painted in what looked like blood. There was a makeshift altar in the center of the room, adorned with candles and strange artifacts. And then I saw it, a small, worn teddy bear lying on the floor, identical to the one that belonged to the missing college student. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, cloaked with a face obscured by a mask. Keeper. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to say something, to confront them, but I couldn't find my voice. "You should not have come here," Keeper said, their voice distorted by a modulator. I lunged forward, grabbing for their mask, but they were too quick. They sidestepped me and disappeared back into the shadows. I chased after them, but the depot was a maze of corridors and dead ends. I lost them in the darkness. I stumbled out of the depot, gasping for air. I had to get to the police. I had evidence now, tangible proof that something terrible was happening. Detective Miller listened to my story with a weary expression. He examined the teddy bear, took notes, but his eyes held a familiar skepticism. "Mr. One-Hand, Thorne, I understand you're concerned, but this is all circumstantial. We'll investigate, of course, but I can't promise you anything." He clearly thought I was delusional, another internet conspiracy theorist who had lost touch with reality. I left the police station feeling defeated and more alone than ever. Back in my apartment, I found the chat room had changed. The tone was different, hostile. "Spectre, he knows. Raven, he saw. Whisper, what do we do? Keeper, he is one of us now." I closed the chat room, terrified. I tried to disconnect, to shut it all out, but it was too late. The symbols were everywhere. In the patterns of the wallpaper, in the shadows on the street, in the faces of strangers. I started having nightmares, vivid and disturbing dreams filled with masked figures and ritualistic sacrifices. Sarah came over, concerned about my increasingly erratic behavior. "Elias, you need help. This isn't healthy. You're scaring me." I tried to explain, to tell her about the chat room, about Keeper, about the symbols that were consuming my life. But she just shook her head, her eyes filled with pity. "I'm taking you to the hospital," she said. "You need to see a doctor." I resisted, but she was insistent. As we were leaving my apartment, I received one final message from Keeper. It was a picture of my house, taken from across the street. The message read, "We know where you are." Then I heard a scratching sound outside my window.